One of the people who made disclosures that led to the investigation by the public protector of the so-called state capture is the former government spokesperson Themba Maseko. He revealed that the Gupta family approached him directly to divert business to their companies, and he suggests that they got permission from President Zuma to do so. He believes that his refusal to take instructions from the Guptas is what led to his dismissal as head of the Government Communications Information System, the GCIS. His submission is part of the allegations that have been leveled against President Zuma in the state capture report, which Zuma has interdicted in the courts. State capture is a big political issue in South Africa at the moment and may determine the future of the country and its leadership. Maseko joins us to discuss his exit from the GCIS, the alleged request made to him by the president, and the events that led to his subsequent removal. Mr. Themba Maseko, pleasure to catch up with you.
Tim, how are you?
You know, a pleasure to have you with us.
No, it's my pleasure.
Big political drama, this. And when you came out the first time and revealed what had transpired, I'm sure there are people who were saying, Themba wa papa, man. It is just a case of sour grapes and he lost his job several years ago. There's no truth to such allegation. I'm sure there were many people who were skeptical. But what gave you the courage at that time to just come out and speak out and reveal what you revealed then?
I think the real thing that made me to speak was when there was a revelation that, in fact, the family, the said family, Guptas, had offered the Deputy Minister of Finance, the Finance Minister's job. And to me, that was the last straw, because this was, in my case, it was a question of trying to put pressure on me to transfer government business into the newspaper, the New Age newspaper. But when it became clear that they're even going to the extent of actually beginning to offer ministerial jobs to individuals, I thought that was reaching an unacceptable level. I thought that so many people had died for this country, for a single family to come and basically hijack our revolution in this manner was unacceptable. And I thought the time had come for many people who had had experiences to actually come out and speak.
Right. Now, in your case, what had happened? What had transpired?
What happened basically was that they called me. I can almost use the word summoned me to their residence in Saxonwold. And as I was driving on my way to the meeting, after they'd made requests several times, I then got a call from the president saying that there are these people that I needed to help, so I must try and help them out. So as I was driving to the venue, I was already extremely upset, because I thought if I had agreed to give them an audience, to have a meeting with them, there was absolutely no need for them to put additional pressure on me by getting the president to actually give me a call, because I thought they were trying to demonstrate to me that they have power, they have authority, they've got access to the highest office, and my job is simply to do what they asked me to do. And in fact, the conversation took the form not of a conversation, but it was more an instruction to say, this is what you must do. And I found that totally unacceptable. And when I tried to explain the intricacies of how government processes work, that you don't just sit in a meeting, instruct an official to give business to one of your companies and it happens like that. I explained that there's a procurement process, and in fact, on top of everything else, the budgets for advertising was not actually lying within the GCIS. It's allocated to the various government departments. So for me to be able to amass that 600 million rands into a single pot and hand it over to them, it means I must instruct other departments to do the same. And I said that's not how it worked. What actually upset me further was when they told me that, in fact, I don't need to worry about that, because I must just instruct other departments to transfer the money into my budget. And if those departments don't cooperate, I must come back to them and this individual, Ajay Gupta himself, and he will sort them out. He will sort those ministers out.
Who said to you that he will sort the ministers out?
He will sort the ministers out.
Who said that?
This was Ajay Gupta himself.
He says to you in a meeting that he will sort the ministers in government out.
Who refused to give me their allocation, their budget allocations. And I just found that totally unacceptable, because as a government official, ministers are my leaders. Now here's an individual who is not part of government telling me that he will actually deal with my leaders. I just found that totally unacceptable. And that's why I decided that at that point, I was not going to cooperate with them.
So what subsequently happened to you? Because, sometime later then, because you refused to cooperate with them, then you were told that your position has been terminated. Can you just tell me about what led to that situation?
The sequence was basically that literally a few days before the launch of the New Age newspaper, he then calls me, or one of the officials from the Gupta family calls me and says, listen, there's a newspaper that's going to be launched, and they want me to actually have a meeting with them on one Monday morning. And when I told them that, listen, call me on Monday, we'll have a chat, and he insisted that he wanted to meet me on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and I refused. Literally within 20 minutes, Ajay Gupta himself called me to say he hears from his people that I'm refusing to cooperate. So he was, in essence, instructing me that instead of the meeting happening on Monday, it must happen the following day, which was a Saturday. And I actually told him where to get off, because I told him that I don't work for him. He can't give me an instruction to have a meeting with him at a time that's not suitable to me. At which point he said, it's clear that I'm refusing to cooperate with him. He'll talk to the people who are senior to me in government, and I will be sorted out. And that was the end of the conversation. And literally a few weeks later, my minister calls me to his office to say, listen, you need to move on. Your services are no longer required in GCIS. And that's how I was moved to another department of government. Now, I can't sit here and say for certain that it is linked to the call that I got from Ajay Gupta himself. But if you look at the sequence of events, it's very easy for anybody to draw an inference that because of the call, the conversation, and this was the consequence of what happened.
But ultimately, when you were transferred and finally moved out of government, what happened at that specific time?
Well, I was actually sitting in a cabinet meeting because my job was to report on the outcome of government meetings. So I was sitting in a cabinet meeting. During tea break, my office calls me to say, what's going on? I said, what is going on? They say, no, ENCA is already reporting that I've been fired.
But you are inside a cabinet meeting.
I was sitting in the cabinet meeting. So I then went to my minister and said, Minister, there's a story breaking here. Can you explain what is going on? The minister himself was not aware. The story had already broken in the media, so we immediately made other plans. The minister said he was not going to let me go into the streets. He'll find another department where he'll deploy me to, and that happened to be the Department of Public Service and Administration. And the funny thing about that whole scenario is that the Minister of DPSA, the department I was moving into, was not at the cabinet meeting. So I had to call him to say, Minister, can we meet? Because I'm your new DG. And he said, no, but you're not my new DG. I said, no, but the announcement has already been made. I'm coming over to you. And that actually, in a way, spoiled my relationship with Minister Baloyi, because at that stage, he had not had a say about whether I was going to come over to him.
So you're like imposed to him.
I was imposed to him. But that's how things happened. So I had to prepare the cabinet statement when the media was already reporting that the job was gone.
Well, I don't. I'm gobsmacked. I'm going to.
You want to buy movie rights to this
I can't believe. It's unbelievable.
It is.
But it happened. For real, it happened like that.
It did happen. On the day that it happened, I subsequently saw in my phone a call coming from Ajay Gupta, but I simply didn't answer the call. I didn't know why he was calling, whether he was calling to celebrate or to tell me that, if you had listened to me, you'd still be in the job. So I simply ignored the call.
Just want to establish one fact. As the head of the GCIS, you sat in on cabinet meetings, right?
Yeah. My job was divided into two.
Yes.
One was head of GCIS,
Yes.
CEO of GCIS.
Yeah.
And the second part of the job was to be cabinet spokesperson.
That's right. So meaning that you were privy to the deliberations of cabinet.
Yeah, I attended all cabinet meetings.
Okay.
Basically.
So you knew so many other things except for the fact that you've been dismissed from your job.
Yeah, that's correct. So when it was clear that the story was already in the media, my minister and I had to come back into cabinet to actually announce that this will be my final cabinet statement, and a new spokesperson had already been appointed, and cabinet had to be told that there's a new cabinet spokesperson. So it was quite an interesting...
Who was chairing cabinet that day?
The president was chairing the meeting, yes.
Okay. Did he say anything about...
No, he didn't say a word, no. So my Minister Chabane is the one who actually had to make the announcement at the meeting.
Okay. And your relationship with the president since then?
Well, it was okay. I mean, in my new job, I didn't have much dealings with him.
Yeah, but I mean, around that time, did he maybe say anything to you?
No, he never said a word. We never had any conversation, no call, nothing. No
now,
contact.
The whole matter of state capture has taken its own life, right? Following what the Deputy Minister, Gupta said, the Fake Mentor said, yourself. And the ANC, through the Secretary General, said it was going to have its own commission of inquiry. How did that go? Were you ever invited to come in and make your submission? And did you make such submissions?
The ANC initiated its meeting, and then they issued a statement to say they are setting up a panel to do the investigations. I then made a contact with the Secretary General of the ANC to say, listen, I've heard you made this announcement. Can we have a meeting? He granted an opportunity to talk to him. And after that meeting, he asked me to put my submission in writing, which I duly did, because I thought every opportunity must be used to get to the bottom of this. Because if the whole question of a single family had such undue influence over the state and all its entities with regard to access to government contracts, for me, it's a matter of life and death, because essentially it means that the government's ability to deliver on its mandate, the government's ability to address the whole question of corruption is actually quite limited. And we can't allow a situation where a democratic state that came about as a result of the fierce struggles that we waged. I mean, people lost their lives to liberate this country. And for one family, and there could be other families, but at least this one, I believe there's sufficient evidence to suggest that, in fact, they were having this undue influence over the state, and it had to be investigated.
So you did?
So I went to make my submission to the ANC, and to my shock, a couple of weeks later, the ANC announced that, in fact, they were stopping that investigation because of non-participation by many people. So I turned out to be the only one who made a written submission, according to the ANC. Yeah. So that's how it ended.
And the religious leaders also have their own process, so you have made submissions to them.
The SICC has set up its own panel to investigate the matter, and they called me and invited me and asked if I wanted to make a submission, and I cooperated with them. I made my submission to them.
But the public protector then had her own process, and this is as a result of the opposition parties requesting or lodging a complaint with her and asking her to investigate, right? Firstly, let me get your view briefly. Do you think that the ANC would have been better placed to do this investigation than the public protector? What do you think?
At the end of the day, if you look at it, my view is that the ANC could have done something, but their process was limited in a sense that, it's a political party, so it could only call on its own members to participate in that inquiry. Whereas I think that the investigation needed to be broader than just to ANC members. So if there's a member of the DA or EFF who's got information, they would not be obliged to make a submission to the ANC. So it had its limitation, but I think there was something that the ANC could have done. I think the public protector's process is much better because it can be broader. Political party affiliation is irrelevant to
what are we likely to learn from this public protector state capture report, you think? I mean, there are other people who came in with their own submissions, and yours already is, I'm taken aback by some of the events that led to your dismissal and your experience. What do you think is likely to be contained in that?
It's difficult to say. My expectation, at least, is that the number of people who had come forward with information would have increased, because now we know about only 3 or 4 of us who actually came out openly. But because of the credibility of the Public Protector's Office as a Chapter 9 institution, more people would have come forward. Clearly, the National Treasury has made some submission to the Public Protector, according to the media. So the findings are likely to be based on submissions by quite a wide pool of people. So I'm hoping that, in fact, some body of knowledge will emerge about how this whole notion of a family having undue access to government was actually operating in the country. But
let's conclude this. I want to, and the report was supposed to come out on a Friday, and it was interdicted by the president and the minister, Van Rooyen. And then on the late Friday, the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, made his affidavit with the courts and saying he must be given a declaratory order. We now know that there are so-called suspicious transactions of the magnitude 6.8 billion rands that were made by the family and companies linked to themselves. So when you take all of this together, from where you are sitting, what do you think is going on, Themba? I mean, we hear state capture, there's public protector, the president implicated, it appears, the Gupta family mentioned. Is there something substantially wrong going on here? Or this is just, the way the political systems work anyway? I'm asking from a point of view of, let's call them ordinary people in the street, who are wondering, what is this thing?
I think something has gone wrong in the way that state institutions have been operating. I think that in our 20 years of democracy, we've allowed certain individuals, a particular family in this particular case, and this could be an example that there are other similar cases of other families or other businesses that have the same, of private interests actually beginning to control and run state institutions for their narrow, selfish, and corrupt ends. And I think that our political leaders have allowed this kind of corruption to actually take place. And I think we need to nip this thing in the bud now, whilst we're still developing and growing our new democracy. But something did go wrong, and I think we need to deal with it. And if there is evidence, in my view, of wrongdoing by government officials, by politicians, by senior executives in state-owned institutions, I think that prosecutions must actually follow, because people must be prosecuted and held accountable for breaking our laws, essentially, of stealing public money for their own ends. So if state institutions fail to prosecute, I think that the public must explore even private prosecution, so that people must know that if you get involved in the corruption that they were involved in, there must be consequences. And I hope that, in fact, we will get to that stage as a country.
Very brief response. Do you feel the Guptas cost you your career in the government?
I think that our weak political system allowed them to do wrong things in this country.
Themba Maseko, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, Tim.
Much
It was a
appreciated.
pleasure, yeah.
Well, there you are. Write to us, give us feedback on email. The address is tonight@modise.tv. Tonight@modise.tv.